The message arrived at Galactic Council Station Alpha during the third rotation. It came through on all frequencies, translated perfectly into all 342 official council languages. This alone should have been concerning. No first contact species had ever managed such linguistic precision. We seek peaceful integration, but understand that harm to our exploratory vessels will be considered an act of war. Council Representative Zixlar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as the transmission played. The creature's upper limbs twitched with amusement, ridges along its neck flushing a deep purple. Another primitive species making empty threats, Zixlar said to the communications officer. From which system does this originate? Sol system. Representative. Third planet. They call themselves humans. Zixlar flicked a dismissive tentacle. Add them to the monitoring list. Low priority. They haven't even established colonies beyond their home system. The representative turned away, already focused on more important matters involving the trade dispute between the Arcturian Empire and the Rigelian Confederacy. The communications officer hesitated. Should we send a response, Representative? Why waste the quantum bandwidth? They'll either develop properly and join us in a few centuries, or they'll become problematic and require management like the others. By management, everyone knew what Zixlar meant. 67 emerging civilizations have been managed in the past 1,000 years alone. The officer nodded and filed the human message away. No response was sent. 200 million kilometers from Earth, Captain John Miller stood on the bridge of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon *. His ship represented humanity's best. A crew of 157 scientists, engineers, and military personnel on a mission of peaceful exploration and scientific discovery. Still no response, Captain, said Communications Officer Becky Martinez. It's been 3 weeks. Miller nodded, his weathered face showing little emotion. 25 years in space had taught him patience. We'll proceed as planned. Set course for the Orion sector. Those anomalous readings could be evidence of artificial structures. That's disputed territory, sir, First Officer Paul Green reminded him. Vraxian ships have been aggressive in that region. We sent fair warning to the Council, Miller replied. Our mission is scientific. We have every right to be there. The Horizon slipped into FTL travel, its revolutionary engines allowing it to cross vast distances without relying on the established Council jump gates. This technology alone would have alarmed the Council had they bothered to investigate the human transmission more thoroughly. 3 days later, the Horizon dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Orion sector. Science Officer Emma Jones immediately began collecting data on the strange energy signatures that had drawn them here. Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching, Martine said suddenly. Configuration matches known Vraxian war vessels. Miller straightened in his chair. Open communications, all frequencies. Channel open. Vraxian vessels, this is Captain John Miller of the Earth Ship Horizon *. We are on a peaceful scientific mission and... The first plasma blast hit before he could finish his sentence. The Horizon's shields buckled immediately. Evasive maneuvers. Miller shouted as the bridge filled with smoke. Get a distress beacon ready with all our data. 3 more plasma volleys struck in quick succession. Critical systems failed across the ship. Beacon ready, Captain, Martine is called out, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. Launch it, Miller ordered, knowing what it meant. The beacon would reach Earth, but the Horizon wouldn't. The last thing the ship's sensors recorded was the Vraxian commander's transmission to his fleet. Primitive vessel eliminated as ordered. The Council will be pleased. The emergency beacon traveled through subspace, carrying the Horizon's final moments. 4 days later, it arrived at Earth Defense Command Headquarters. Admiral Lisa Wright watched the recording in silence, her face a mask. 157 lives. Gone because the Council couldn't be bothered to respond to a simple message. When the recording ended, she sat motionless for several minutes. Then she opened a secure channel to the president. "Madam President," she said, her voice steady, "they've made their choice." Across Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden facilities began to power up. Humanity had hoped for peace, prepared for war, and now the decision had been made for them. The Galactic Council had ignored their only warning. They would not get another. 6 months passed since the destruction of the Horizon *. In the Grand Council chamber, Intelligence Officer Krelthak stood before the gathered representatives of 300 species. His normally blue skin had paled to a sickly gray from stress. "Honorable representatives, I bring disturbing news," Krelthak said. "In the past 60 days, 17 outposts along the outer rim have gone silent. No distress signals, no debris. They simply disappeared." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representative Zixlar leaned forward. "These outposts were likely victims of pirate activity. Why bring this to the full council?" Krelthak's throat sac pulsed nervously. "Because there is a pattern. All affected locations had some connection to the Vraxian destruction of that primitive vessel 6 months ago. Either they supplied the warships, processed the data, or stored communications about the incident." Zixlar waved a tentacle dismissively. "You suggest those primitives from Sol are responsible? Absurd. They have no faster-than-light capabilities beyond their single system." The Vraxian representative hissed in agreement. "Our scans showed their ship used basic propulsion systems. They couldn't possibly reach our space. Nevertheless," Krelthak continued, "the pattern points directly back to that system that sent the warning message." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Even the usually solemn Andromeda delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement. "Next you'll tell us the Glix herds of Betelgeuse are planning an uprising," Zixlar said to more laughter. Unknown to the council, their entire session was being observed through quantum sensors hidden in the chamber years earlier. Aboard the stealth vessel Silent Justice parked in a debris field just 10,000 kilometers from the council station, Commander Sam Barton watched the council meeting on his view screen. He turned to his communications officer. "Send the feed to Earth Command." His officer nodded. "Already done, sir." Barton's ship was one of hundreds now positioned throughout council space, all completely invisible to council scanning technology. The stealth field technology had been developed 40 years earlier but kept hidden, just like many of humanity's most significant advances. On Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, Admiral Lisa Wright stood in the massive underground command center carved deep beneath the frozen surface. Around her, thousands of military personnel monitored screens showing positions of human vessels spread across 50 light-years of space. No alien had ever detected these bases, hidden beneath ice and rock, powered by zero-point energy generators that left no heat signature. "Status report," Wright ordered. General Alan Foster approached with a tablet. "All vessels report ready, Admiral. The Vraxian defense grid has been mapped completely. Their patrol schedules, shield frequencies, and weapons capabilities have been analyzed. We can strike at your command." Wright nodded. "And the civilian evacuation protocols?" "In place. Our data indicates 3 major population centers on the Vraxian homeworld will be conducting military celebration events. Most civilians will be gathered in these areas, away from military targets." Wright studied the tactical display showing the Vraxian homeworld. After the Horizon's destruction, humanity had debated their response. Total war had been rejected. Genocide was not humanity's way. But a message needed to be sent, one the Council couldn't ignore. "Begin Operation First Light," Wright ordered. Foster sent the encrypted command. Throughout Council space, human ships received their orders. On the bridge of the stealth destroyer Judgment Captain Kelly Price read the incoming orders. Her ship carried no nuclear weapons, no biological agents, just precision kinetic rods made of simple tungsten. When dropped from orbit, they would hit with the force of small meteors, destroying military targets with minimal civilian casualties. "Move us into position above the Vraxian capital," She told her navigator, "Prepare all rods for deployment." As her ship silently glided into position high above the Vraxian homeworld, Price watched the planet's night side come into view. The Vraxians were celebrating their festival of conquest, unaware that their military was about to be surgically dismantled. "For the Horizon *," she whispered as she gave the order. "Begin deployment." Across the galaxy, humanity revealed its hand. The Council had ignored their warning. Now, they would face the consequences of that mistake. The night sky above the Vraxian capital lit up brighter than day. From her ship's view screen, Captain Kelly Price watched as the tungsten rods struck their targets with perfect precision. Vraxian military bases, weapons factories, shipyards, and command centers erupted in flames. The ship's computer counted down the targets. 46, 47, 48. "All primary targets neutralized," reported Lieutenant Dan Weber. "No rod missed its mark. Civilian areas remain untouched." Price nodded, satisfaction evident in her eyes. "Confirm. 0 civilian casualties." "Confirmed, Captain. Our intel was correct." The military installations were empty of all non-military personnel due to the festival. In the Vraxian capital, General Thraz stumbled out of his command bunker, scales singed and smoking. Around him, every military structure lay in ruins. His communication device buzzed urgently. "Report," he barked. "Sir, it's happening everywhere," came the panicked reply. Every military installation on the planet hit simultaneously. Our orbital defenses, our fleet bases, our weapons depots, all destroyed. "But sir, civilian areas weren't touched." "Not one." Thraz stared at the burning remains of his command center. This was not random. This was not pirates. This was a message. 12 hours later, an emergency session of the Galactic Council convened. The Vraxian representative pounded his clawed fist on the podium. "Our military has been crippled. We demand immediate assistance. The primitives from Sol must have developed faster than light technology in secret. The massive doors to the council chamber swung open. A human male walked calmly into the room. He wore a simple black suit with a small pin showing Earth's continents on his lapel. The council guards moved to intercept him, but found their weapons wouldn't fire. "Who dares interrupt council proceedings?" demanded Zixlar. The human stopped in the center of the chamber. "My name is Eric Gallagher. I am the ambassador from Earth." Silence fell across the chamber. Many representatives had never seen a human before. "You are not recognized by this council," Zixlar said. "How did you bypass station security?" Gallagher smiled slightly. "The same way we bypassed Vraxian security. The same way we've been observing your council meetings for the past 30 years. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Vraxian representative hissed in rage. "You attacked our homeworld. An unprovoked act of war." "Unprovoked." Gallagher's voice remained calm. "You destroy our exploratory vessel Horizon * and killed 157 humans. We simply responded in kind." He turned to address the entire council. "The Vraxian military has been neutralized as punishment for the unprovoked destruction of the Horizon *. We could have eradicated their species. Remember that. This was mercy." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some representatives shouted for the humans' arrest, others for immediate war. A few sat in stunned silence. Gallagher raised his hand, and suddenly all sound in the chamber ceased. The representatives found themselves unable to speak. "You ignored our warning. That was your first mistake. Your long history of crushing emerging civilizations ends now." He looked directly at Zixlar. "We've been watching you for generations, learning your technologies, mapping your territories, understanding your weaknesses." As suddenly as it had vanished, sound returned to the chamber. Gallagher walked toward the exit. "This was a demonstration of restraint," he said over his shoulder. "The Vraxians fired on our ship without provocation. We responded by destroying only their military capabilities, with 0 civilian casualties. Consider what we could have done had we chosen otherwise. The doors closed behind him, leaving the council in disarray. On Earth, President Nancy Clark watched the recorded exchange from the Oval Office. Beside her stood Admiral Wright and General Foster. Phase 1 complete, Foster said. The Council is now aware of our capabilities, but not their full extent. How long until they respond? The President asked. Wright checked her tablet. Our intel suggests they'll split into factions within 24 hours. The more aggressive species will push for immediate military action. The President nodded. Then we proceed to Phase 2. Operation Checkmate begins now. The Emergency Council session stretched into its third day. What had begun as a unified governing body was now splitting into angry factions. We must negotiate, urged Elder Vox of the Andromedan delegation. The ancient being's translucent skin pulsed with blue light as it spoke. These humans demonstrated remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the entire Vraxian species, yet they chose to spare all civilian lives. Negotiate with terrorists, snarled the Rigelian representative, slamming his armored fist on the table. They attacked a council member unprovoked. Unprovoked, Elder Vox countered. They warned us. They told us not to harm their ships. We, or rather, the Vraxians, ignored that warning. The council chamber, once a model of order and unity, had descended into a shouting match. Representative Zixlar attempted to restore order, but the damage was done. By the day's end, the council had formally split. The Peaceful 17, led by the Andromedans, advocated for immediate diplomatic relations with humans. The War Council, comprised of 40 militaristic species including the wounded Vraxians, demanded united military action. The remaining species abstained, fearful of choosing the wrong side. On Earth, Director of Intelligence Maria Diaz sat in her underground office beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens surrounding her showed live feeds from the council session, captured by quantum sensors hidden throughout the chamber. They're reacting exactly as predicted, she told President Clark through a secure video call. The council has divided along the exact lines our models forecast. And the War Council? The President asked. They're preparing a response fleet as we speak. 200 capital ships, maybe more. Maria pulled up a tactical display showing movement across several sectors of Council space. They expect to find a vulnerable planet with limited defenses. The President's face remained calm. Are we ready for them? Phase 2 is complete, Maria replied. Operation Checkmate is proceeding to Phase 3. Across the solar system, humanity's true military might was finally being revealed. Deep beneath the cratered surface of Mercury, massive factories have been producing quantum weaponry for decades. Inside the dense atmosphere of Venus, enormous energy collectors harvested power from the planet's extreme conditions. From Mars to the asteroid belt, defense platforms waited in perfect hibernation. But the greatest secret lay in the shadow of Jupiter. Hidden from prying eyes by the gas giant's radiation belts, the Jupiter shipyard stretched across 10,000 kilometers of space. Here, humanity had built its real fleet, not the handful of exploration vessels known to the Council, but thousands of warships engineered with technologies reverse-engineered from crashed alien vessels over the past century. Commander Sam Barton stood on the observation deck of Jupiter Station 1, watching as hundreds of ships powered up their systems for the first time. Lights blinked on across vessels of all sizes, from small, agile fighters to massive dreadnoughts. Beautiful, isn't it? Said a voice behind him. Barton turned to see Admiral Wright joining him at the viewport. I never thought I'd see the day we activated the full fleet, he replied. Wright nodded. We spent generations preparing, hoping we'd never need to use any of this. Do you think they'll surrender when they see what they're really up against? Wright's face hardened. The War Council? No. They've built their entire culture around conquest. They'll have to learn the hard way. On the Vraxian homeworld, military leaders gathered in a makeshift command center built from the ruins of their headquarters. General Thraz addressed his fellow officers. The Council War Fleet will depart tomorrow. 200 of our most powerful ships, joined by vessels from all War Council species. He bared his sharp teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. We will show these humans what happens when you challenge the Galactic Council. None of them noticed the small, spider-like drone clinging to the ceiling, transmitting every word back to Earth. In her office, Maria Diaz listened to the fraction plans and smiled. The trap is set, she whispered to herself, and they're walking right into it. The War Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 200 ships strong, it was the largest military force the Council had assembled in 3 centuries. At its center, the Vraxian dreadnought Merciless led the formation. "Scan the system," ordered Fleet Commander Grax. His scaled skin gleamed under the bridge lights as he studied the tactical display. "Scanning, Commander," replied his sensor officer. "Detecting 8 planets, 1 star. Minimal orbital defenses around the 3rd planet. Several small military satellites, but nothing that could threaten our fleet." Grax smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "As expected, these humans caught us by surprise once, but they won't do it again. They must have spent everything they had on their attack against the Vraxian homeworld." "Sir," interrupted the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the humans." "Ignore it," Grax ordered. "Prepare all ships for the attack run. Target their military installations first, then government centers." The War Council fleet moved forward, spreading into attack formation as they passed the orbit of Neptune. None of them noticed the subtle distortions in space around them, or the faint energy readings that briefly appeared on their sensors before being dismissed as solar interference. As the fleet approached the orbit of Jupiter, alarms suddenly blared across every ship. "Energy surge," shouted the sensor officer, panic in his voice. Massive readings appearing everywhere. Around Jupiter, thousands of previously invisible defense platforms shimmered into view as they dropped their stealth fields. From behind the gas giant's largest moons, hundreds of human warships appeared, their sleek hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. Between Mars and Earth, a previously unseen energy barrier flickered to life, stretching in a vast dome that would prevent any enemy ship from approaching Earth directly. "Impossible," whispered Grax, watching as his tactical display filled with more enemy contacts than he had ever seen in one place. "There are thousands of them." Before the War Council fleet could react, a single human vessel broke from the Jupiter defense line and moved toward them. Larger than any ship in the Council fleet, its hull was marked with the name Retribution in bold letters. "Now they're hailing us again, Commander," said the communications officer. Grax hesitated, then nodded. "Put it through." The bridge view screen activated, showing a human male in a dark uniform with gold stripes on the shoulders. Behind him, a pristine bridge buzzed with activity. "This is Admiral Frank Tanner of the Earth Defense Force vessel Retribution *." The human's voice was calm, almost conversational. "I see you've brought quite a fleet. We've been expecting you." Grax snarled. "You dare to threaten the combined might of the Galactic Council. This is merely our first wave. Surrender now, and we may allow your species to survive as servants." Admiral Tanner's expression didn't change. "We tried to come in peace," he said simply. "Now you'll understand why that would have been the wiser choice." He nodded to someone off-screen, then returned his gaze to Grax. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and engines. Any ship that fails to comply will be disabled." Grax laughed, a harsh sound. "You primitive fool. Your tricks won't save you this time." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their flagship and fire all weapons." The Vraxian dreadnought's main cannon powered up, energy building to levels that could vaporize a small moon. The beam lashed out toward the Retribution and vanished 3 meters from the human ship's hull, absorbed by an invisible shield without even a ripple to show for the impact. Across the bridge of the Retribution, not a single human seemed concerned. 30 seconds have elapsed. Admiral Tanner said, his voice still calm. You've made your choice. He looked off screen again. All ships, commence Operation Checkmate. Phase 3. Disable the enemy fleet. No unnecessary casualties. Throughout the human fleet, weapons powered up. The War Council fleet was about to learn exactly how outmatched they truly were. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision. Their weapons didn't destroy the Council vessels. They simply shut them down. System by system, the mighty War Council fleet went dark. On the bridge of the merciless Commander Grax watched in horror as his ship's lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, providing dim illumination and just enough life support to keep the crew alive. What's happening? He demanded, but his officers had no answers. Their weapons, engines, and communications were all disabled by technology they couldn't even understand. One by one, the 200 ships of the War Council fleet drifted helplessly in space. Not a single human vessel was damaged in the encounter. Admiral Tanner's face appeared on the emergency screens of every Council ship. Your vessels have been neutralized. Your crews will remain unharmed. We are not murderers, unlike those who destroyed our ship Horizon. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes were hard. Representatives from each of your worlds will be allowed to return home with a message. The rest will remain in custody until further notice. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was only half full. Many representatives from the War Council species hadn't returned from the failed attack on Earth. Those who had looked shaken, their usual arrogance replaced by fear. The massive doors opened, and Ambassador Eric Gallagher entered again. This time, no one tried to stop him. He walked to the center of the chamber, where a speaking platform rose to accommodate him. The War Council fleet has been neutralized, he stated without preamble. We could have destroyed every ship and killed every crew member. Instead, we disabled your vessels and took your people prisoner. They are being treated well and will be returned to you in time. Representative Zixlar, looking much less confident than before, asked, "What are your demands?" Demands. Gallagher smiled slightly. We don't make demands. We offer a choice. He tapped a small device on his wrist, and a holographic display appeared above the council chamber. It showed images of planets being bombarded, species being enslaved, civilizations being erased. We've observed your collective history, Gallagher told them. You've crushed 67 emerging civilizations in the last millennium alone. Species that could have contributed wonders to the galaxy, erased because they didn't fit your model of development. The images changed to show lush worlds, advanced cities, and beings of all shapes and sizes working together. This is our vision for the galaxy. Cooperation, not domination. Diversity, not conformity. Growth, not control. Gallagher's voice grew stronger. Your choice is simple. Reorganize with humanitarian values at the core, or be systematically dismantled. On the council station, Arch-Counselor Vreen sat in his private chambers. The oldest being in the council, he had seen much in his 900 years of life. The humans' ultimatum played on repeat on his view screen. They hid from us, he mused to his aide. All these centuries, we thought them primitive, yet they were studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing. What will you do, Arch-Counselor? The aide asked. Vreen's ancient eyes blinked slowly. For millennia, we have operated on the principle that emerging species needed to be controlled or eliminated if they developed too quickly. He sighed, a sound like wind through dry leaves. Perhaps we were wrong. On Earth, in the Oval Office, President Clark watched Gallagher's address to the council with her advisors. Will they accept our terms? She asked. Maria Diaz consulted her tablet. Our analysis suggests the council will fracture further. The peaceful 17 will accept immediately. The remaining neutral factions will follow. The hardliners will need more persuasion. finished Admiral Wright. "But we have a plan for that too." The president nodded. "Begin Phase 4. It's time to change the balance of power in the galaxy permanently." News of the War Council's defeat spread quickly across the galaxy. What couldn't be contained was the truth behind the human ultimatum: that the Council had systematically destroyed dozens of emerging civilizations. Data packets containing proof began appearing on communication networks throughout Council space. On the Betelgeusian colonies, an enslaved species called the Noor had lived under Council oversight for 8 centuries. When they learned what had happened to the War Council fleet, they rose up against their overseers in a single night. 3 days into their rebellion, the Noor leaders gathered in an underground bunker, preparing for the Council's brutal response. Their simple weapons would be no match for orbital bombardment. They knew this, but freedom was worth the price. A young Noor burst into the chamber. Ships. Many ships entering orbit. The leaders bowed their heads. The end had come sooner than expected. But the ships that appeared in the skies above the Betelgeusian colonies didn't open fire. Instead, small shuttles descended to the surface. When their doors opened, humans emerged. Lieutenant Olivia Garcia stepped forward to meet the Noor representatives. Unlike most visitors to their world, she wore no protective suit against their atmosphere. Human scientists had prepared her team to breathe the air and eat the food of every world they might visit. "I am Lieutenant Garcia of Earth," she said through a translator. "We bring medicine, food, and engineers. Earth stands with all free peoples." The Noor leader, his skin shifting from fearful gray to hopeful blue, asked, "Why would you help us? We are nothing to the galaxy." Garcia smiled. "No sentient species is nothing. The old Council would have you believe your worth is measured by your technology or military might. We disagree." Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds as humanity extended aid to species long oppressed by the Council. Earth ships appeared as if from nowhere, bringing supplies, technology, and hope. On the Rigelian homeworld, a Council stronghold, Commander Howard Chen led a small team into the heart of their military command. They didn't kill a single Rigelian. They didn't fire a single shot. They simply walked through all security as if it didn't exist, planted a small device in the central computer core, and walked out. When they left, the Rigelians discovered all their military data had been erased. The weapons they had pointed at their own population suddenly wouldn't fire. The ships they used to enforce Council will throughout their sector sat powerless in their docks. "The humans are demons," declared the Rigelian High Commander. "They walk through walls and turn our technology against us." But the Rigelian workers, long oppressed by their military caste, saw things differently. With their oppressors' weapons neutralized, they seized their chance for freedom. Council space erupted in revolution. Species that had been subjugated for generations found their courage. Those who had enforced Council will discover their advantages suddenly gone. In her office beneath the Rocky Mountains, Maria Diaz tracked the spreading rebellion on a massive holographic display. 17 major Council worlds in full revolution, she reported to President Clark over the secure channel. 34 more showing signs of unrest. The Council military response has been limited. Most of their ships were either in the fleet we disabled or have been neutralized by our strike teams. The President nodded. "And our humanitarian aid, reaching all critical areas. Commander Chen's teams have been particularly effective at neutralizing military responses against civilian populations." Throughout Council space, stories spread of the human special forces who appeared from nowhere, disabled weapon systems without a fight, and vanished again. They became legends among the liberated worlds. Ghosts who could walk through walls, warriors who won without bloodshed, saviors who came not to conquer but to free. On the Council station, more representatives arrived each day, demanding reform. The old guard found themselves increasingly isolated as their power bases across the galaxy crumbled. The revolution that might have taken centuries was happening in weeks, guided by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive just months before. 3 years after the destruction of the Horizon, A new structure hung in neutral space between the major star systems. The Concordia station stretched 20 kilometers across, its gleaming hull shaped like a wheel with spokes extending from a central hub. It was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a place where all species could meet as equals. Representatives from 412 species, both former council members and newly liberated civilizations, gathered in the vast central chamber. The old Galactic Council had been officially dissolved 2 months earlier, its remaining hardliners powerless without their military might. President Jake Russell stood at the speaking platform, looking out at the assembled delegates. At 62, his hair had gone completely gray during his time in office, but his voice remained strong. "The age of conquest and subjugation is over," he declared. "Today we begin an era of mutual respect, shared knowledge, and collective defense of all sentient rights." The chamber erupted in cheers, whistles, and the various sounds that hundreds of different species made to show approval. "The Galactic Cooperative will operate on principles that respect the autonomy of all member worlds," Russell continued. "No species shall dominate another. No civilization shall be deemed too primitive for protection. The strong shall defend the developing, not exploit them." In the front row, Elder Vox of the Andromedans nodded in approval. Beside the ancient being sat Arch-Counselor Vreen, one of the few former council leaders who had embraced the new vision. Even a delegation of Vraxians attended, their once proud military culture beginning a difficult transformation. "We humans are not perfect," Russell admitted. "Our own history contains dark chapters of conquest and cruelty. Perhaps that is why we recognize the pattern in the Council's behavior. We know the path you were on because we once walked a similar road before we found a better way." After the ceremony, Admiral Lisa Wright stood at a viewport on the station's outer ring. Now in her 60s, her once dark hair had turned silver, but she remained as commanding as ever. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at the station, their crews mingling in the great halls and corridors. She felt someone join her and turned to see Dr. Carol Miller, Captain John Miller's widow. "It's quite a view," Carol said softly, looking out at the stars. Lisa nodded. John would have loved to see this. Carol's eyes shimmered with tears that didn't fall. The Horizon asterisk was lost, but not in vain. Every ship that arrives here carries a piece of their legacy. Below them, the assembly hall filled with representatives from across the galaxy, former enemies now cautious allies in a new interstellar community. On Earth, in what had once been Maria Diaz's underground command center, engineers dismantled the war planning systems. The vast space was being converted into a cultural exchange center where species from across the galaxy could learn about humanity, and humans could learn about them. Commander Howard Chen supervised the work. "Make sure all the classified systems are completely removed," he told his team. "This place needs to be open and transparent." "Yes, sir," replied a young officer. "What about the quantum communication array?" "Replace it with standard technology," Chen said. "We don't need to keep secrets anymore." Across the solar system, the massive military infrastructure that had remained hidden for generations was being repurposed. The shipyards of Jupiter now built exploration vessels and trading ships. The defense platforms around Mars became research stations. The weapons factories beneath Mercury's surface were converted to produce medical technology. 3 years ago, humanity had revealed its strength when the Galactic Council ignored their warning. Now they revealed their true power, not in weapons or stealth technology, but in their capacity to forge a new path for all sentient beings. As President Russell finished his address to the first gathering of the Galactic Cooperative, he offered a simple truth that resonated with every species present. The greatest strength isn't in domination, but in cooperation. The strongest civilizations aren't those that stand alone, but those that help others to stand.